and then over...
I told the others. They didn't believe me. You're all doomed. You're all doomed.
Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode of Saturday Night Horror. Now this is the first weekend in October, and for Saturday Night Horror that usually means we just dedicate it to one franchise the entire month. This year's going to be no different. Last year we did Halloween. This year we're going to dedicate it to Friday the 13th. Now we're not starting with Friday the 13th Part 1. Honestly, that's my least favorite. It's not a bad movie, it's just my least favorite of the franchise, so I'm going to skip over that. And tonight we're going to be starting with Friday the 13th Part 2. Now this is actually the first Friday the 13th where we have Jason Voorhees as the main antagonist. This isn't the first time we've seen Jason. We've seen Jason at the end of the first movie. I'm not going to spoil what happens there. But Part 2 is the first time he's actually the main antagonist, the main villain, if you will. And pretty much starts his ascent as a horror icon. Now, believe it or not, Friday the 13th Part 2 wasn't supposed to have Jason in it originally. Originally, what they wanted to do was have a movie with the Friday the 13th title come out every year as kind of a horror anthology. It would have a different story, one that had nothing to do with the previous film. But people loved the ending of Part 1 so bad, with the Jason appearance, they loved it so much that the higher-ups decided, Jason needs to be in the sequel, and luckily that's what we got. I can't imagine a horror movie universe without Jason Voorhees. It's just weird. So yeah, this is the first time he's the main antagonist, and I'm looking forward to it. I actually watched it beginning of the year. Definitely looking forward to watching it again. Now this was before Jason was kind of zombie Jason and had all his supernatural abilities. This was the very beginnings. We really didn't know where the character of Jason would go from here. So a lot is different. There's a couple things going on in this movie I have questions about, and we'll get to that later on in the video. But before we watch the movie, we're going to cook something tonight. I actually don't know what the heck to call it. I'm just going to throw a bunch of stuff together, cook it, and mix it all up, and you'll see what I'm talking about once we get started. So, alright guys, that's going to do it for the intro here. We're going to go in the kitchen, we're going to cook this, whatever this stuff is going to, I have no name for it, but we're going to cook it. After we're done cooking, we'll take a look at Friday the 13th Part 2, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So for right now, let's go in the kitchen, let's get this food started. Alright everyone, here's our ingredients for whatever you want to call this. First of all, we have our hamburger meat here. And we've got some taco seasoning we're going to add to that meat. We also have some mild salsa. We have sharp cheddar cheese. It's got to be sharp cheddar. We have fresh lettuce. And some Tostitos scoops. Or Tostitos, excuse me. But yeah, that's it. That's all we have. First thing we're going to do is cook the meat. And we've got the meat in the pan here, and I've already made a mess on the counter over there. You can see it. Got some stuff splashed over there. I'll have to clean that up when we're all done. But yeah, I just like to chop this meat up into as just small chunks, or small pieces. I gotta have it as small as possible. Alright, so the meat is done cooking. Drain the grease out. So we're going to pour this taco seasoning in there. We're going to mix this all up, and I'll scoop the rest out of this measuring cup in just a second. Alright, so we got it cooking now. It's not quite done. We've mixed the meat in with the taco seasoning. We just have to let it cook some more. Let that seasoning get soaked into the meat, cook into the meat. Shouldn't take too long. Alright, so the meat is done. Taco seasoning is cooked into it. So now we're going to add everything else. We're going to add some of the salsa, some cheese, some lettuce, and we're going to crush up some of those Tostitos. And we're just going to mix it all together. So it should be pretty good. I'm looking forward to it. Alright, so here it is. Everything is mixed up. Everything's cooked. We're good to go. All we need to do now is just get this on a plate, and we'll be ready. It smells good. It should taste good. I hope it does anyway. Alright, let's get it on a plate. Alright, here we go. So we got a big old scoop on a plate. That should be plenty right there. Now that we got our food, we need something to drink, so let's head over to the fridge and let's see what we have. Something tells me y'all know what it already is. Just a hunch.
Never, never fun, there's always Coca-Cola, yeah. Coca-Cola, always Coca-Cola.
Alright, our Coke Zero Orange Vanilla. Got our food. Let's go out in the front room, watch a movie. Alright, so here we are, Friday the 13th, part 2. Got our Halloween decorations out. We just need to turn off the light. Alright, all the lights in the house are off. Got our food, we got our drink. Got our Halloween decorations over here. We're good to go. So yeah, definitely looking forward to this. This is going to be a fun night. I always enjoy watching this movie. See, we got our skull up there. That skull is so cool, man. Alright, so Shadow climbed into my lap and fell asleep. So yeah, I would say she's going to watch the movie with me, but I think she's just here to use me as a pillow. So, always good to have one of the cats here with me. Alright everyone, so Friday the 13th part 2 is done, and it was a fun night, I gotta say. I always enjoy watching Friday the 13th part 2. Like I said, the first film with Jason is the main antagonist, and honestly it's kind of weird to see him in this movie because this, like I said, this is before he had all his supernatural abilities and before he was kind of invulnerable, so it's weird to see him like this. And what's even weirder is when I talk about this movie, I was like, oh yeah, Jason had the potato sack, the burlap sack on his head. People don't believe me. Newer fans, they always try to argue with me. Jason never had a sack. He always had the hockey mask, and that just blows my mind. So, no, he did not start with a hockey mask. He actually started with a burlap sack over his head in this movie with one eye hole cut out, and we'll get to that later on in this film. I read some interesting theories about that. So yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2. Most of the movie, majority of the movie takes place 5 years after the events of the first one. Now the first 10 to 15 minutes, I'm not sure. I read it's 2 months. I read it was 3 months after, so it actually begins with a woman named Alice, who was the sole survivor of the first Friday the 13th, and we get about 10-15 minutes of her and kind of an event going on there. You basically see a pair of boots and jeans walking along the street, going up to her house, and she ends up getting killed by this guy in the boots and the jeans, who we later on find out is Jason. Sorry for spoiling that for those of you who have not seen it, but I'll get to the point in a minute. So, my question about that is, you see Jason, he walks to her house, he kills her, but her house, where's her house? How far did he walk? Because you know in the later movies, Jason kind of sticks around Camp Crystal Lake, except for part 8. So I'm wondering, where's this house at? How far did he walk? And I talked to a friend of mine, he's thinking maybe her house is near Crystal Lake, and he didn't travel too far, because, I mean, if you're traveling far, someone's going to notice a big burly dude with a burlap sack on his head. So that was my first question. Yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, after the Alice scene, we find out it's been 5 years since the event of the first Friday the 13th. And guy and a girl, Paul and Jenny, are getting a counselor training camp together near Camp Crystal Lake. And as you know, if you're near Camp Crystal Lake, bad things will happen, and they do. Find out Jason, he keeps stalking these counselors in training one by one, killing them off. And it's just, it's funny to watch, because most of the movie, you just see him with a burlap sack on his head with a one eye hole cut out. You don't see his face till the very end, and it's nothing like any of the other movies. Now, I do have some questions about part 2. We find out that Jason is living in a ramshackle shack in the middle of the woods. I mean, it's literally put together with different pieces of wood, metal, whatever. And the first question I had was, did he build that himself, or did he come upon it and just decide that's where he's going to live? I'm inclined to think he built it himself, because in this movie, unlike later Friday the 13th movies, Jason actually shows intelligence. And one of the key features of that, there's a scene where Jason is stalking Jenny. She's hiding under a bed. Jason's in the room looking for her, doesn't see her. He's about to leave, and Jenny kind of pees herself out of fear. And unfortunately, there's a puddle by the bed. Jason notices it. So next thing you know, you hear the door close. Jenny looks around. You can't see his boots from under the bed. Looks like he's gone. She climbs out from under the bed, and Jason's standing on a chair in front of the bed. So he closed the door to make her think he was gone, then stood up on the chair so she wouldn't see his legs or his boots. The Jason in the later films would never do that. He wasn't smart enough to do that. Or maybe he didn't have to. He's supernatural at that point. So this Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2 shows intelligence that the other films just don't have. And that's what makes me think that he actually built this shack. And there's another thing that I was kind of impressed with. Once two of these counselors actually go to the abandoned Camp Crystal Lake, and they find a carcass of an animal. And I'm thinking Jason killed the animal, and that's what he's eating. That's what he's surviving off of. He's killing these animals and eating them. So that's what I'm thinking the carcass was. So he's intelligent enough to kind of kill these animals and live off of them. Now, in later movies, obviously he doesn't have to because he's supernatural, but I think this one had a lot of intelligence that pretty much goes overlooked for the most part. Overall, it was a good movie. The kills were, nothing really over the top. Pretty basic for the time. For some reason, it did get an X rating. They had to cut, I think it was 48 seconds of footage out. Some of the kills were deemed X-rated, which today they'd probably be fine, but back then it was unheard of. But yeah, it is a fun movie overall. The look of Jason at the end of Part 2 and then Part 3 is totally different. The end of Part 2, he's like a disfigured hillbilly. That's what he reminds me of. That's what I think when I see his face. Kind of like a disfigured hillbilly. Then, of course, Part 3, he's just all mongoloid as hell, but yeah. So like I said, Part 2 was definitely a good movie. It's always fun to kind of see where Jason started. Oh, the burlap sack, I almost forgot. The burlap sack with the one eye hole. Someone was saying that he was blind in one eye, and maybe that's why he cut the one eye hole in it, because half his face was disfigured, his eye was disfigured. So he may have been blind in one eye, and that's why he only cut one eye hole in the sack. It's never been made official. It's never been confirmed, but it's a good theory. I kind of like it. So, maybe that's why. I don't know. But anyway, this Jason was a lot smarter than later versions. So yeah, we're going to end it right there. I'm rambling on. But this movie was awesome, man. Like I said, it's always fun to see where Jason started, like what he started as, compared to what he became. A whole different world. Seeing this movie compared to, let's say, Part 8 or Jason X or even Freddy vs. Jason, man, he came a long way, folks. So if you want to see what Jason first started out as, kind of the progression, start with Part 2. You won't regret it. Part 2 is awesome. Always fun to watch. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. We're going to end this like we always do. We're going to have a musical piece. And we're going to reveal which Friday the 13th movie we'll be watching next week. So, I hope you guys had a good weekend. Hope y'all enjoy your week. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. I appreciate the support. I appreciate y'all watching. I definitely enjoy bringing it to you. And until next weekend, take care, everybody.